The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says that U.S. President Donald Trump's travel restrictions on 7 Muslim countries and freeze on refugee settlement should be lifted sooner than later. Mr. Guterres emphasized the need for non-discriminatory border controls, comments widely seen as criticism of Mr. Trump's temporary freeze. He also warned that the travel ban risks triggering anxiety and anger. U.S. President Donald Trump signed his executive order on Friday, halting people from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria and Yemen from traveling to the United States for 90 days. He also stopped the resettlement of refugees for 120 days.
If the objective is to really avoid terrorists to enter the United States, we are dealing with very sophisticated global terrorist organizations. And if a global terrorist organization would try to attack any country like the United States, they will probably not come with people with passports from those countries that are hotspots of conflict today. They might come with passports from the most, I would say, developed and credible countries in the world, or they might use people that has been for decades sometimes inside the countries. And that is why it is so important not to have measures that spread anxiety and hunger, because when we adopt measures that spread anxiety and hunger, we help trigger the kind of recruitment mechanisms that these organizations are now doing everywhere in the world. And that is why we have been so strongly pushing for the capacity to have very strong measures in relation to management of borders, but at the same time not to base them in any discrimination linked to nationality, religion or ethnicity.
Italy has set up a fund to help African countries better seal their borders in a bid to keep migrants from boarding flimsy and often deadly rubber boats bound for Europe. Foreign Minister Angelino Alfano announced the €200 million fund. Mr. Alfano says Libya, Tunisia and Niger are the 3 strategic partners for the fund, but Nigeria, Senegal, Egypt and Ethiopia could be future partners.
L'obiettivo strategico di questo fondo è lavorare sulla frontiera esterna.
The strategic objective of the fund is to help African countries control their external borders and to stop the departures, to cooperate with the countries on the other side of the Mediterranean, and the strategic objective is also to prevent departures. African countries can request training and equipment to beef up border controls. We haven't talked about setting up camps in Tunisia or elsewhere, also because, and here I refer to Libya, it is premature to do so while there is an ongoing pursuit for the conditions for peace, in the real sense of the word. Peace, which doesn't just mean an absence of war, but a cooperation of all parties involved to build a common destiny and future. What we are really working towards is to have no need for camps. In other words, what we are working on is to stop the migrants from leaving, so that there will be no need for camps, or dangerous crossings in the Mediterranean, or the need for repatriation procedures. We will not build, we cannot do it, and we wouldn't do it anyway. We are not building walls in the Mediterranean. We don't need to build walls, but we need to render the marriage between solidarity and security, security and solidarity, ever stronger. So far, Italy is a country that has managed to save hundreds of thousands of human lives while remaining safe.
At least 5 East Libyan force soldiers have been killed in clashes with Islamist-led rivals on the edge of a recently recaptured district of Benghazi. Forces loyal to Khalifa Haftar, head of the eastern-based Libyan National Army, have been fighting Islamists and other opponents in Benghazi since 2014. They have secured most of the city but have suffered heavy casualties as they try to gain control of a final few areas. After capturing an area that they had long besieged in the southwestern district of Ganfuda late last month, they have been fighting to force rival fighters from some half-constructed buildings known as the 12 blocks. The LNA still faces armed resistance in 2 neighborhoods in northern Benghazi. Angola is still grappling with remnants of decades of war as landmines continue to pose a real risk to civilians and prevent them from developing their land. An extensive program to rid the country of mines is also struggling to meet a 2025 deadline for a mine-free world as government and donor funding dries up.
Sergio Augusto is at the Huambo Physical Rehabilitation Center in southern Angola to have his leg checked. He was hit by a landmine in August last year while out playing. A 6-year-old had to have his leg amputated after the accident to save his life. His brother Jeremiah Paco Augusto was also maimed in the incident. Like many landmine victims here, the boys have been waiting to get prosthetic legs to help them walk again. But the center is barely able to provide medicine because there isn't enough money. The accident occurred in a region where people farm. We also lost a relative in the blast. Sergio and his brother were injured and their legs were amputated. It is difficult. What I need now is for the government to help me because I don't have the means to care for them on my own. Africa's top oil producer is facing a financial and economic crisis, compounded by a public health crisis that has laid bare the failings of the diversification mantra of José Eduardo dos Santos. He has been the country's president for the last 37 years. A collapse in oil revenues has hammered the government's budget, 70% of which normally comes from petroleum receipts, to the point that basic services such as garbage collection in the capital city have ground to a halt last year in the wake of a yellow fever outbreak. The situation practically means that our services will not be credible, and we may even get to see people staying away from the centers. Any patient who needs our services will not bother coming because they know that we no longer have the capacity. 20 years after Princess Diana helped raise global awareness of landmines and the plight of their victims, Angola, like various affected countries, is still struggling to clear its lands of explosives left behind by conflict. Production and use of landmines has declined after the Mine Ban Treaty, which prohibits their use, stockpiling and transfer, was adopted nearly 2 decades ago. Hard to detect, difficult to clear and often designed to maim rather than kill, landmines can linger in the soil for decades and kill or injure thousands of people every year.